thank you for the invitation here. And I would also like to thank Dr. Srinivas for many pleasant things he said about me. I don't know how much of which I deserve though. Uh, over the next 7 to 8 minutes, I'll just be taking you through a few problems that are associated with diabetic retinopathy, especially the magnitude of the problem of diabetic retinopathy in India, the challenges that we face in taking care of diabetic retinopathy to the local people, and also a few thoughts about what we have been doing trying to address some of these challenges. In India, close to 61 million people live with diabetes. The prevalence of diabetes in rural population is slated to be 4 to 6%, but going by the fresh numbers that we are getting, it could be anywhere higher. 70% of the population of India lives in our villages. That means a considerable population of diabetics are residing in rural areas. By conservative estimates, it suggests that there are close to 10 million people in India who seem to be suffering from some form of diabetic retinopathy. But unfortunately, the facilities to treat diabetic retinopathy are skewed and present mainly in some of the big cities. What are we talking about? Diabetic retinopathy is basically a potentially blinding condition. It affects all diabetics if they survive long enough. It is said that close to 75% of the diabetics end up with some form of diabetic retinopathy if they live up to 15 or 20 years with diabetes. What is shown here is this is a proliferative stage of diabetic retinopathy, which is an end stage of diabetic retinopathy, which is a potentially blinding condition. This is the other reason why diabetics may lose sight, that is diabetic maculopathy. But the point is that it takes many years to reach this stage. There is a large window of opportunity where the condition can be detected much earlier and treated if there is being regular follow-up and treatment at the early stage, much before it reaches this stage with the help of laser. In India, when we have to treat diabetic retinopathy, the challenges that we face are, one, we need to examine our patients repeatedly. So in a remote village, patient who's sitting in a remote village, for him to be examined repeatedly and making his trips to the big cities on a routine basis when he does not have the problem, is almost impossible to convince him to do that. The other thing is, once you offer him the treatment, you still need to follow him up for the rest of his life, because he is bound to get more problems as a result of diabetes as he goes on in life. So ideally, you would like to have a healthcare delivery system which provides the screening, the treatment, and the follow-up in the semi-urban or the rural areas, which is much more accessible to these people. But how do we do that? There are many challenges to achieve such a healthcare system. For one, there is lack of equipment. You don't have the resources to set equipment in every semi-urban and rural nook and corner of India. For people who are already practicing there, even for them to put such equipment, it's a massive expense. It's almost economically non-viable. You're not going to get back what you put on these equipment, which may run up to a few crores, by charging your rural patients. They don't have the ability to pay you for the treatment. Thirdly, even if somebody does manage to put equipment there, you don't have the training for the manpower which is there. The doctors, even the ophthalmologists, do not have the training to deliver this care there. So how do we overcome these challenges? Some of the solutions which could be obvious are, why don't we share a set of equipment between multiple practicing doctors? So you reduce the cost of investment. For that, you need to put it on a mobile platform, which has never been done before, and which had never been done before in the world. You need to have a sound economic policy, because if you need local partners to continue to participate with you, it needs to earn them something. They're not going to be working with you for charity for long. That means there needs to be some economic sense for them to continue to partner with you over a long period of time. For that, there is an economic incentive for the local doctor. But we should also understand that in India, not all the rural population are in a position to pay for the treatment. So you need to be inclusive in your policy to make sure that those who cannot afford treatment still do manage to get the treatment. With this in mind, this project Nayana was envisaged in 2005. The Nayana project basically aimed at a cooperative sharing of equipment between different ophthalmologists. This set of equipment was made available in the ophthalmologist clinic for 1 day in a month. Diabetic retinopathy is not a compelling emergency. It can be pooled. You can pool your patients for 1 day in a month and do your treatment. That means if you have the entire set of equipment for 1 day in a month, you can pool your patients and treat them. Patients who can afford the treatment are charged a subsidized amount. 70% of what is charged on the patient goes to the local treating ophthalmologist. 30% comes as the share of the van. Patients who cannot afford the treatment are further subsidized and are treated free of cost. What does the van carry? The van basically carries a fundus camera capable of performing a fluorescent angiography, a diode laser for laser treatment, ultrasound biomicroscope, a YAG laser, a visual field analyzer, an A-scan biometer, and different lenses which we need to treat. Basically, this is more or less a specialty retina clinic, a medical retina facility which is on wheels, which can be used by multiple players. So this entire set of equipment is now made available to 83 ophthalmologists who are practicing in 24 different geographical locations across Karnataka state, covering around 16 districts. How do we achieve this? One, you needed to first form a mobile clinic, which was not there before. We need to transport certain delicate equipment, which includes lasers, angiogram machines, and ultrasound scans and other things, which again, the companies refused to allow us to put it on a mobile platform because they said they would not stand guarantee for transporting equipment on Indian roads especially. So thirdly, as Dr. Shantanu was saying with the case of telemedicine, you need to have a caregiver at the other end who uses this equipment effectively. That means, so what we did was we tried to identify people who are already settled in semi-urban and rural areas who are practicing ophthalmology, who are basically doing cataract work, which is the bread and butter of all ophthalmologists. But we said we will empower them with equipment, we will empower them with training, and we'll make sure that they provide the care to their own patients effectively from there on. So to form the mobile clinic, the main challenge is once again where one, in rural areas, very erratic power supply, sometimes no power supply, extremes of temperature, humidity and dust. So how do we overcome all that? So this mobile van was basically built on an Indian cargo chassis. It has a 2+1 driver chamber and a treatment chamber which is actually about 18 to 14 to 6.5 feet. It is double walled with a wooden lining inside, basically to insulate it from the heat. And there are no special shock absorbers used in this van as such. The temperature inside is controlled with an air conditioner, fan for internal air circulation, and a dehumidifier to keep the humidity at about 56% because you don't want fungus developing on the lasers and the optics of the instruments that we have. The van carries its own power supply. Wherever there's no power, you use the generator and run all the equipment. Otherwise, where it is available, we use the local power supply. Most of the times, many times we get to see such roads where we have to transport, but many times you need to go on such roads. So that means you need to transport these delicate equipment on really unfriendly terrain. So one of the things that we came up with here was that, these manufacturers are already manufacturing their equipment. For example, Zeiss makes it in Germany, but hands over the equipment in Kenya. That means they do transport it across the continents. How are they doing it? And after many discussions, they said, we disassemble and move it. We said, fine, we will disassemble each time we move it. So what we did was we got these custom-made boxes done. You can disassemble the equipment and put it in these boxes, which has movement arresters. Basically, within the box, it doesn't move anywhere. And it takes about 10 minutes for you to disassemble and reassemble the laser machine if we need to. So every transport is made sure that you disassemble all the equipment, put them in custom-made boxes. And all these boxes are arranged in this floating cage, basically. Because when this problem came, because this was a problem with insurance, they would not insure the equipment when they said, if you're going to transport it, we're not going to insure so much of equipment. So you had to come up with a viable explanation as to how you're going to safeguard the equipment when you're transporting them. So we met a group of fellows from IIT Chennai, and they designed this floating cage. This cage, if you see, it rests on some high pressure springs, and the springs rest on the pulley-like thing. If you notice here, there's a rails, basically, they're sitting on rails. So if there is a jump, it's place. Similarly, it gets connected to the sides of the wall and the roof with high springs, and it plays always. There's never a jerk, but there's always a simple up and down movement. So So with this, we have been actually able to make sure that the entire set of equipment has never got damaged as a result of at least transport related damage. So we've used it for 8 years quite extensively, and it has worked so far. For the third challenge, which is how do we make sure that the treatment is delivered in the rural areas? It's not possible for any one of us or anybody, for example, howsoever motivated he may be, to run around 25 days a month and treat people in rural areas everywhere. So what we did was, once we identified the local doctors, ophthalmologists, who came on board, we made sure that we trained them because these guys are already ophthalmologists. They needed only the extra training to treat diabetic retinopathy, identify and treat diabetic retinopathy. So they were made sure that they could provide the treatment, and this training included we traveling on the van for the first 1 year, hand-holding them through treatment, and all our equipment has these side tubes where first you treat and they treat on ping pong balls, basically to make sure that we understand that they're doing the right thing, and then they watch us do the treatment, and then we watch them doing the treatment, and once they're certified, we stop going there. They continue to provide the treatment in that area. So for the last 5 years, we have not been traveling, but for the first 2 years, we did travel on the van to make sure that they were all on board. Every single procedure can be performed on the van: a fluorescein angiogram, ophthalmoscopy, laser treatment, or camera. So what it has achieved so far is that we serve a population which subserves about 18.3 million. Every month, the van visits 24 locations across 13 districts initially. Now we've scaled it up to 16 districts. It has done about 2,800 days of operation, more than 5 lakh kilometers. On an average, 33 to 34 patients per location. These are treatment patients. We're not talking about screening patients, but we're talking about patients who already need treatment. On a daily basis, the local ophthalmologists continue to screen their own diabetic population, and they pull them on one day. So in effect, what happens is this set of equipment is kept busy through the month. 24 days, it is from morning till night, it is earning. Though it may be earning small amounts, the numbers make up for the total amount of money that it earns at the end of the day. We have with us 83 ophthalmologists, 71 of them actively doing the treatment now. Close to 30,000 patients have been treated on the van, more than 12,000 lasers. And the spin-off has been that many patients who cannot be controlled with laser, who need surgery, advanced surgery, are brought to our base hospital in Bangalore and they get treated here. This is a map of Karnataka which shows these were the facilities which were available in 2005 before the treatment, before the project was started. And now, as we see, all these dark blue dots are the added facilities which provide the treatment as a result of the mobile clinic. And then I would like to thank all the participating doctors of the project, as well as World Diabetes Foundation, which actually gave us the seed money to put up the equipment. They were crazy enough to back our idea and said we'll pay for the equipment. And thank you for your hearing. We'll take questions.